Welcome to Your Music Saved Us, where two friends blast ourselves into the past to relive and recontextualize the alternative Christian music we grew up listening to in the 1990s. My name is Clifton, and I'll be your host for this episode. Joining me is a man who carefully measures the sugar every time he makes lemonade. Jay, how are you doing today?
I'm great, thanks, Clifton.
All right, so what album are we talking about today?
We are listening to the self-titled debut album from a band formed by the former drummer of notable Christian hardcore band Focused, but this band is not hardcore in any way other than the singer seems to have gone through a hardcore breakup while listening to lots of Dinosaur Jr. In other words, we're listening to the Merbabies.
All right. I think that perfectly encapsulates this album. Thank you for joining us on another episode of Your Music Saved Us. So how hard was this album to find in 2021?
Not easy.
Yeah.
If you did not have the CD, that was it. There were, I think, one or two songs on YouTube that someone had uploaded, but that's it. And as we've talked about with other bands, having a name like the Merbabies, and especially with this being a self-titled album, does not lend itself to Google very easily. Nope. Just try going on YouTube, for instance, and searching Merbabies. You'll get a lot of weird stuff, but not this band.
It's easier. I found that if I did an image search, I could, and I think I found things that had to do with their album title. I could, or album cover. I could find articles about them. Well, one article or something like that. That way.
Right. Yeah. I was hoping. And by the way, if anyone out there has it, we would love to see it. I was hoping to find like a live video.
Oh yeah, that'd be nice.
Some of these bands that we do, we can find on YouTube, but after page and page and page of just actual Merbabies, I gave up.
Tell us a little bit about the Merbabies then.
So, like I said, the one of the early connections was to Focused, but I found some information even before that. This is from a site called somewherecold.net. that had an interview with the singer who's kind of the main driving force behind the band. His name is Chris Bowden, and he's the main songwriter. He was also the guy that was in Focused. But I found some information even before that. He said the first real band he was in was during high school with Matt Wignall, who also is Matt Wignall of Javelina Rail Company, Matt Wignall of Jackson Rubio Records, who put out this record. I'm sure we'll talk more about Jackson Rubio later in this episode, also hopefully on some more. But he said, he was friends with his younger sister, and he said Matt was the coolest, craziest cat ever. They had a band called 063 WGG, which was the license plate on his old Volkswagen Bug. He said they played for a year, nothing came of it. After that, he said it was a quick run with Sid and the Smooth Tones. So I don't know what that band sounded like. Maybe ska, I don't know. But he said after that, he went to kind of straight edge hardcore, and then he shifted into emo and had some band called Emission that was kind of a quicksand, Sensefield type of thing. And then he mentioned it, and then he says, then my musical taste had leaned into other avenues. Dinosaur Jr., Pavement, Sebadoh, Superchunk, etc., which I think we can see the influence of in this album a lot. But basically, some of his friends were recruited into playing for Focused. He said he was around 19 or 20, got asked to play drums for them on a 6-week tour. Wasn't necessarily his style of music, but had fun doing it, hung out with them, recorded their second album with them, I believe The Hope That Lies Within. And after that, just kind of wanted to play more his style of music. And so kind of switched from drums to the guitar and kind of started the Merbabies in about 1996. And this album came out in 97.
Okay.
Yeah, I found a couple other things. I did find one. There's one site from angelfire.com, if anybody remembers that. I think this is called Worthless Records. There was a short interview with the band. And again, he just basically said, it's not that I didn't enjoy Focus. It's just I want to do something else. So when Focus broke up, everybody kind of turned to their own things. And he started doing this. And it looks like he picked up the other members of the band from Rosewood Christian Reformed Church, which is kind of in the Long Beach area of California. Clifton told me before this episode that it looks like Rainy Days and some other bands played at that church as well. Is that right?
Yeah, so when we did the interview with Sean from Rainy Days, he sent us some live shows that or some other recordings that they did, and one of them was a live show from Rosewood. Yeah.
So, and I looked up that church today.
Mhm.
Interestingly enough, they have a female head pastor, which, in my opinion, is quite progressive for evangelical Christianity. So I don't know much
Yeah.
else about the church, but I'm curious about that. I thought I might recognize on the staff some old band member from one of these bands, but I did not.
Especially being Reformed, I would think that would be more conservative
That was my guess.
and more letter of the book.
But it sounds like this church had a lot of bands playing there all the time. So
yes, that's true.
Who knows?
I've actually read a little bit about the church, and it said that they often had even secular bands there to draw people in.
Right.
Like kind of like pizza secular bands. It's a trap. Sorry.
Oh, maybe you should call your band Pizza. Anyway, so this was actually just the second album to be released on Matt Wignall's Jackson Rubio records. The first one being Javelina Rail Company's Russian Lullabies. And, Javelina had been on Tooth and Nail from the beginning. Right. I don't think it was from another interview I read with Wignall. I don't think it was any bad blood. He just wanted to kind of do his own thing. So Jackson Rubio, actually, when you look back at their lineup, they put out some really good stuff. We covered Blaster the Rocket Boy, but their next album is Blaster the Rocket Man was on there. There was a kind of a crazy Soul Junk album released. Halo Friendlies. Brainwash Projects, which was actually really good hip hop, and those guys went on to be in LA Symphony. Like, lots of good stuff came out on this little label, and from what I read, the biggest problem was distribution. He said he was constantly frustrated by just not being able to get the albums out to as many people, and so I think that's kind of what caused the demise of the label.
That's interesting.
As far as the Merbabies go, they had one more release, which is the Indio EP that just came out a year later in 1998. At some point after this, the band broke up. I did find an interview with Matt Wignall again from Jackson Rubio from July of 2000. And at that point, he said the Merbabies were still together because they practiced at his house. But after that, in 2001, Chris goes on to form another group called Other Desert Cities, which is kind of his next project. So somewhere in the 2000-ish area is when this band officially broke up.
Okay.
As far as the other members, I don't know what they've done since then.
Yeah.
But yeah, and we can talk. I've got some more info about after the Merbabies, what all he's done, but we'll talk about that later.
Cool. So take us back to the 90s. How did you find the Merbabies?
You know what? I don't have one main moment with this. I'm going to assume I found this at the Christian bookstore and probably bought it either because of the way the cover looked or honestly more likely because it was on Jackson Rubio and I liked Javelina and thought, well, okay, if they're putting this out, this must be interesting. So I got it.
I remember seeing it back in the day, and it was one of those. It was an album that caught my eye with the cover, just because it was obviously some kind of alternative or something like that. It wasn't the more boring stuff in the Christian bookstore, but it was never one of those ones that was available to listen to, and it would never pulled me in enough to actually listen to it. So I completely missed this back in the day.
The cover definitely has that kind of looks like indie rock or alternative, like you said. It's not going to be like a ska album or something. From looking at it,
and I didn't know the term indie rock back then. I knew I knew that Black Eyed Skiva called themselves college rock, and that was my term in the day.
Well, that would have fit with this band as well. And again, I think the problem might have been distribution. Like this was making it out to some Christian bookstores, but it's not like they had a lot of copies of it out there. It wasn't getting a lot of promotion. So it just kind of fell by the wayside, I imagine.
Okay. How did you feel about this album at the time?
I remember really liking it. And this was one of those albums that I kind of felt like was mine. If this makes sense, I don't remember a lot of other people liking it, which probably has to do with the distribution stuff we're talking about. This was not one like a lot of my friends were playing or talking about, like Supertones or some of the other ones we've covered. But I remember really liking it, and I remember really loving the song If I Could, that we'll talk about later. But that was just that song I just played over and over and over again.
That's a bit surprising for me, given it's probably one of the slowest songs in the album. And I know that you don't have a lot of patience for slow songs. But,
I know. Well, there are a few I skipped on it, but
All right. We'll get back to that when we come to the song, though. All right. So what did you expect before diving back into this album again?
I thought I would like it, but I wasn't completely sure how well it would hold up.
Mm-hmm. Did it?
I felt like it did. Yeah. Overall, and I was surprised. Overall, I enjoyed it quite a bit, and I was surprised at how quickly all the lyrics and stuff came back to me. Like I remembered it really well. And again, there's only been 1 or 2 songs I've heard in the last 15 or 20 years because they were on YouTube.
Yeah.
You know, I think, and I'm curious your take because you never heard it, but I kind of think even the sound holds up pretty well. I mean, it's 90s kind of indie, like, I mean, you have to say Dinosaur Jr. because there's a lot of that kind of Built to Spill Dinosaur Jr. influence, but to me, it doesn't sound as dated as some of the stuff we've listened to for this podcast.
No, I agree with that, but I also have a hard time distinguishing that because a lot of my music is kind of stuck in 90s, indie.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Me too. Even the newer stuff, my wife says, this sounds like the 90s.
Yeah, I think Arches of Low sounds great still, So I don't have a clue.
Well, okay, me too. So yeah, that's part of okay, fair enough. We're probably not the best judges of that. I will say the one thing that has changed with this is now going back to it for this podcast and kind of dissecting the lyrics, I've kind of been like, like that, that maybe brought it down a notch.
Yeah.
Or 2. But I will say before we jump to it, this is one of those albums that I understand now why they didn't include the lyrics in the packaging, because it's definitely more like they're better heard in the song than read on paper.
It's also not the art of this album.
Right. Yeah. the lyrics are not the main. They occasionally help the songs.
Yeah.
But it's not the main focus.
Yeah, I agree. All right, you want to jump in?
Yeah. So it starts with a song called Slow Down, which I guess is funny for a first song. But I think it has kind of a good intro and kind of sums up what you'll hear on the album. Lots of fuzzy guitar. And lots of kind of, I'm not a guitarist, so I apologize with this, but kind of like lead guitar melodies playing over that fuzz. Like that's kind of the standard thing throughout the album.
It's that typical 90s, indie rock where there's a fuzzed out guitar playing rhythm and another guitar playing lead-ish, not lead in the classic rock sense, but lead in more like a slightly more interesting guitar.
Which makes me wonder about recording this because they're only a 3-piece.
Yes. Yeah.
So must have tracked a lot of this?
Yeah, definitely some tracking going on here.
Okay. Right. And which also may explain why I'm not seeing a lot of live videos, because this would have been harder to do.
That's a good that's a good point.
Live.
Yeah.
This first song lyrically was the hardest, I think, for both of us to decipher, because we kind of went through and made our own lyrics for these songs. Yeah. I don't know why. I don't know if his vocals are just a little more muffled. The delivery of it, I'm not sure, honestly, what this song is about.
About the vocals, I wrote, the vocals remind me of Joe Christmas, like mumbly Dinosaur Jr.
Yeah.
And they're definitely mixed further back, especially on this song. This song they're most mixed back, where they're kind of just in the middle of the mix and kind of just muddy with everything else, Yeah, and it works.
Yeah, for the style, it works. It's again though, focus on the lyrics. You're not getting much. I mean, He talks about slow down before the world passes. We think back before your eyes. And then he kind of comes back to the idea towards the end. I won't walk around with hands over my eyes. And he just keeps repeating hands over my eyes. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I even think like on this song, I kind of like the lyrics on this song where some long songs later on where we can tell he's talking about more often. They bother me a little bit, but I think this one is vague and, and esoteric enough that it's interesting in bits and pieces and doesn't have to all make sense together, and I think in that sense, it's like a really good 90s indie alternative song, It's just some nonsense lyrics with good music.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I think the Merbabies are best when they're maybe not as clear lyric-wise on what they're talking about.
Yeah, and one of the things I really liked, especially with this song, you mentioned like the kind of noises that led into the like the individual noises that led into the start of the music, and the fuzzed out guitar is great, and it brings this, it is very Dinosaur Jr.-esque, but what this is a little more chill than Dinosaur Jr. It's like, but in almost like a very purposeful sense, and I would call it. I wrote here, it's a chilled out hyperness,
Okay. Right.
Or maybe a hyper chillness. I don't know. But one of those two ways, there's a lot of energy, but at the same time, it's very cool and collected,
And I like the way about 2/3 through the song, it kind of slows down. Mm-hmm. And then speeds back up into this kind of loud, almost like jam session kind of thing towards the end of it.
Yeah, and that happened. That's not every song, but that's, I would say, a third of the songs on this album are kind of like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it does happen quite a bit.
Yeah. And one thing that's interesting in that kind of at the end of the song where it kind of gets a little bit more crazy is that never on the album do the guitars get loud. The guitars might go crazy. I assume live they would probably get loud, but not on this album. They're always kept at the same level. There's a peak, and it never goes above that. I assume that live this would be very different.
I know, and I this is a band I would have liked to have seen live, and cannot find any clips. So again, if anybody out there has some, it'd be great to see.
Yeah, I want to ask you, and maybe I should say this for the end, but it's really this first song that gets me the most Joe Christmassy thing out of this. Do you get that same vibe out of it?
Yeah, I mean, and definitely. For back then when I didn't really have any other things to draw on.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure, when did that first Joe Christmas album came out?
96, sorry, 96.
Yeah. One of those. Yeah. Before this, regardless.
Right, both of them were out before this.
Okay, yes. Yeah. So that would have been one of my only comparisons. No, and I definitely can hear that in here. I don't know if it was really an influence for them, but it's the same style for sure. Yeah.
All right, you want to move on to Here We Go Again?
Yeah. So I like this one. That the guitar is kind of one thing about this album that you hear all the way through is a lot of times I feel like the melody is carried more by the guitar than it is by like the vocals or the chorus.
Falling down again, and I'm begging you, put out your hand.
And this to me is one of those songs with just a kind of little melody, and to me it always sounds like it's going to fall apart when the drums come in, but for some reason like it stays together.
Oh yeah, I love fall aparty songs, so this was enjoyable for me too.
Yeah. I like this song quite a bit. It's got a nice melody. It works well. But this is one of those when I started listening to the lyrics, I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because to me, this is the most quote unquote Christian song on the album.
Very much, yes.
In some ways. And he seems like he's kind of talking about Christian life. He references that verse that I feel like, I don't know if you or anyone else like was ever at church camp in the summer, but I feel like I have vivid memories of kids bringing up this verse where really they're talking about masturbating, but the verse.
I always assumed it was about making out, but okay, whatever.
I do what I don't want to do, all that kind of stuff, and he basically quotes that in the song.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know, brought up lots of memories of church camp and those kind of confessions that seem to happen every year.
But it is a very Christian-y song, and the kind of the song is about failing and help me, I'm failed,
Yeah, here we go again.
Yeah.
Why won't this end?
Yeah.
I'm struggling, all that stuff.
Probably the most interesting thing to me in this is like especially the first verse is kind of like begging for help. It's like I don't know why that struck me as interesting, but it's like, shouldn't God just help without having to be begged for help? I don't know, but
and he's telling God, yeah, you said you would inside your book, so like,
yeah,
you said you'd help me,
Yeah.
so help me. But then the next verse he says, honestly, you're my best friend, which is
that is the groaniest line in this entire album for me. It's on only you do I depend, because honestly you're my best friend.
yeah. Also, I noticed, and you see it in this song, he uses because or cuz, and I searched it in our lyrics 14 times throughout this entire album. He
It is a
falls
lot.
back on that word a lot.
Yeah.
And again, once you notice it, you kind of can't forget it as the songs go on.
Yeah, when we get later on to the album where it becomes more of a getting dumped album, there's a lot of remember also. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but
again, this is a band that now I know why they didn't put the lyrics in the lyrics. And not awful. Trust me, we've seen worse lyrics.
Yes.
But it's not really the focal point of the song.
Right. But leaving the lyrics behind again, it's a good song. I think this is like the all out Dinosaur Jr. song on this album.
Mm-hmm.
Especially that the Folly Party part, the rhythm part of the guitar that you're talking about there is very Dinosaur Jr. But and that's kind of over this really fuzzed out rhythm guitar. And it has a great sound. I really enjoy it.
Yeah, it's nice.
All right, let's dig into Long Distance.
So this one to me has more of a typical song structure.
Mm-hmm.
Like verse, chorus, that kind of thing. And they always say, take good care, this kind of repeated chorus throughout it. So most of the songs on here, this one seems a little bit more kind of standard song structure. It's got a female background vocal kind of going throughout that.
The light was red, but we said go. Could have stayed longer, but you said no. You were right, so right, I suppose. Take good care.
Which is like hauntingly beautiful.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Yeah.
And at first, when I wasn't paying as close attention to the lyrics, I kind of thought this was just a breakup song because there's quite a few of those on here.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm wondering now, because the title is Long Distance, if this isn't more of kind of it still could be breakup, but more of the idea of we're just so far apart we can't be together.
Yeah. And it gets into this line that's repeated over and over again. There's someone else out there. It's in several forms. Like he says, I figure there's someone else out there, or I think there's someone else out there, or I hope there's someone else out there.
Like, take good care, like, goodbye, I guess there's someone else out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if, like one of the lines, light was red, but we said go, could have stayed longer, but you said no, you were so right, I suppose. Like, was this just some kind of like meeting with somebody that he really clicked with and wanted it to work, but it's not going to? Is it a breakup? I don't know.
Yeah. I actually like the lyrics on this song though. I think they were
this one works. I also think another thing I think about the Merbabies is they do better when they're talking about relationships and not about God.
Yes. It's awkward when they're talking about God.
But anyway, and to do a creepy deep dive on this that is probably wrong, but the song is called Long Distance. Becky Kaiser does background vocals, who the only reason I guess this is because Glenn Kaiser is kind of the head of Jesus People USA, Japuza as people call it, who ran Cornerstone forever. And he does have a daughter named Rebecca. And the Merbabies do think Japuza in the credits. So is she the long distance relationship that he's talking about in this? But at the same time, that would be really strange to have her do the vocals in the song.
Might be reaching, but it's interesting.
Or would it? I'm probably reaching, but there's not a lot we could find on this album or about the band, so I'm doing my best here.
Yeah, but no, this is another. The warm fuzzy guitars in this one are just like diving into a like a warm apple pie or something like that. It's very nice in this song.
the whole album has really good guitar tones.
Yeah.
And it's nice. Yeah.
I do want to bring up a topic here that, and this is another thing that I think is a little bit Joe Christmassy. And on Joe Christmas, I understand it because they're from Georgia, right? But like, think about the way he says, "Take good care."
Well, it happened. It happened to me. I didn't want you to leave now. Take good care. Guess there's someone else out there.
There's a lot of Southern drawl on this album. And it's that way with Dinosaur Jr. too, which he may be emulating. But like Jay Mascis is from Massachusetts or something like that. You know, like where is this Southern drawl coming from?
Yeah, and in the next song, I don't want to jump to it yet, but that one you definitely hear kind of a country influence. I'm pretty sure there's slide guitar.
Yeah.
And so, and they hint at it with the photos in the booklet. Like it just, there's a little bit of a country influence on this, which I think grows. The one or two songs I've heard on the next EP seem even more country-ish.
Yes.
And then definitely his projects after that are much more like kind of a country vibe. So he's already kind of into that with this.
Yeah.
And in some ways I really like this Merbabies album because it's kind of a nice combination. Like it's that loud, fuzzy indie rock stuff, but also pulling in just a little bit of that country influence.
Yeah, I agree. But let's just go and do it. Let's get into Lemonade because that's very much this song.
Yeah, so this has slide guitar on it, and definitely this is the first one where you really hear the country influence.
Yeah, in fact, I wrote this is almost an 80s country ballad performed by a 90s rock band. Yeah. And it fit nicely with Wilco or Alkerville River, but not Uncle Tupelo.
Okay.
You know, because Uncle Tupelo and like old 97's Uncle Tupelo, you know, this kind of alt country thing. I always felt like they were kind of like the Pogues, where like the songs people like the best are the ones that are cliched, you know, Irish things, or and that same thing with, you know, Uncle Tupelo and old 97's, which the songs people like the best are the ones that are kind of cliched on country music.
Right.
Which isn't really what country music is like, you know?
Yeah.
What country music is like is a lot more like this song, which is where you use a lot of dissonance and kind of that steel guitar sound of, you know, and you do that because it has like this wailing sound to it, like this mournful, crying sound to it.
And lyrically, this kind of fits with those kind of country, right? You know, the themes of some of what you would stereotypically think of as country music.
You mean other than the fact that it's super weird?
Well, yeah, and it's
a weird song.
Right, yeah, but it's definitely some kind of breakup song.
Yes, that's true.
And weird. I will tell you, back in the day, I think this is one of the ones I skipped because I was like, oh, it's too slow.
Yeah, I requested that we talk about this. Jay was not going to talk about this song, and I was like, no, we have to talk about Lemonade.
No, I will tell you, I had that thought even before you requested, because when I got to the end, and we'll get there in a minute, I was like, what the hell? When I got to the end of the lyrics of this song, like, yeah, this is one of those when you write down the lyrics and you're like, what?
Yes.
So, yeah, Clifton, guide us through what's going on lyrically in this.
God knows. No. So the central metaphor of this is in the chorus. And I'll do the chorus before we do the verses because we got to talk about this chorus, which says, "You put too much sugar in my lemonade. You're way too sweet anyway."
Put too much sugar in my lemonade. You were way too sweet anyway.
So you already know it's a breakup song. So what the hell does that mean
Right.
as a breakup song? I don't. Let's come back to that metaphor in a second as we, yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, so I think outside of the lemonade metaphor in this song, it's actually pretty good. It has some pretty good turns and some good lyrics. So the second part of the first verse is, so turn on the light because it's getting dark in here. Don't turn them off like you did my heart.
Yeah.
It's pretty good burn, pretty good lyric.
And it's a pretty standard, like, breakup song.
Yeah.
Even the first verse before that, too, like, pretty typical. But you're right. Then you get to the chorus, like, what?
Yes. Yeah, I don't know. So, I mean, like, did we... Okay, so there's other ways he references the lemonade thing. So, when second time he does the chorus, he throws in, girl, you're way too sweet anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And towards the end of the song, which we'll come back to also because I want to talk about the bridge, but he just says over and over again, and I'll wait for the perfect lemonade. I'll wait for her perfect lemonade.
Right.
And my first thought is, are we not doing phrasing anymore? And because that is weird. Lots of dirty thoughts can come to mind when you, I don't know what, because what is, anyway, so let's just dive in. What is the lemonade? Is it the relationship? Is it love? Is it lemonade? Is it her attitude? Like, I don't know.
I don't know either. My notes, I had either relationship or love, but it's not completely clear. Either one of those doesn't completely work.
Yeah. And so it's him breaking up with her in this song, right?
Yeah, but because she's too sweet?
Because she's too sweet.
What does that mean?
I don't know. I mean, maybe she's clingy? I don't know. So here's the second half of the second verse. It says, I gave you an inch, but you took 3 miles. And sometimes I'd wish you'd stay a while. Those are conflicting thoughts. If it would have been the other way around, if he'd said it, and sometimes I'd wish you'd stay a while, but I gave you an inch and you took 3 miles, that would make more sense to clinginess, know?
True.
But I don't know. Yeah, it's very weird though. And the lemonade thing is even more, like, this is a 6-minute long song, guys. He says lemonade a lot of times in this song.
Mm-hmm. And
so it's just
because he's going to explain a little bit that I'm sure you're about to get to, kind of why he broke up with her, and you're going to be even more confused.
No, you read this part. I'm not reading this part.
Okay, so he says, you're not the one I've been looking for. All right, so far so good. He says, well, I know it's hard, but I must be sure. And then he says, because the girl of my dreams, her favorite color is green.
You're not the one I've been looking for. Well, I know it's hard, but I must be sure. 'Cause the girl of my dreams, her favorite color is green. And I'll wait for her perfect lemonade.
Yeah. And then we're back into the lemonade stuff.
And then he says, and I wait for the perfect lemonade. So the reason you broke up with her is she's too sweet and her favorite color wasn't green?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what does the color green?
It's oddly specific.
Right.
I mean, yeah. I just...
I don't know.
So let's fall back on the lyrics are not the art of this album, I think.
Right.
But still, when you write a weird song, go back and change a little bit of it so it's a little bit less weird,
Right, because, like, I mean, the lemonade metaphor is not maybe the best, but it works, whatever, it's fine. But then that line, because the girl of my dreams, her favorite color is green. You can find a lot to rhyme with dream. Like, come on.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Unless Clifton and I are missing some much deeper message in this about green being the best color,
I don't know. So Roadside Monument is, my life is green. I don't know what that means either, though.
True. Okay, good point.
I think green is the color of jealousy.
Okay. It's also the color of life, though, and growth.
That's true. Right? Yeah. I don't know.
I got no idea.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. My thought was just over and over again, is this sarcastic?
I don't know. It's not a bad song.
No.
It's just these, because the sound is nice and the slide guitar is really nice.
Yeah.
And honestly, I don't know if anybody else was doing slide guitar in Christian music.
Not in Christian music. No. Yeah. I mean, other
maybe
than
Javelina was in some like weird songs, but not, I guess, more in rock territory, you know?
Yeah.
So that was cool. It was nice, but
the song is
metaphor
good.
in this.
It's a 6 minute long song, and you don't notice that it's 6 minutes long. It's great, you know. I mean, not great, but like it's a good song. But yeah, the lyrics are just overly weird, and you can understand the lyrics so much that it weirds you out while you're listening to it.
Yeah,
yeah. Speaking of that, let's talk about "She Dreams of Me."
Yeah, and so I put this on the list not because it's one of the better songs. I think it's kind of one of the weaker ones on the album, in my opinion. It does start off with a real kind of strong guitar riff that reminds me of kind of like Americana era Starflyer, just this kind of loud riff, but then it kind of mellows back down.
Which is that's very Starflyer. One of my notes was it's very Starflyer, this song.
Yeah. One of the reasons I wanted to talk about it, though, was the lyrics.
Yeah.
And is this maybe like the I Kiss Stating Goodbye song on the album? It's because I'm brought back to a lot of those ideas, because basically, without reading off all the lyrics to you, the song kind of seems to be about like finding the one. And the chorus is basically like, she dreams of me. Like it's preordained that we're going to meet, you know, all that kind of stuff. The end of the song, she dreams of me as I wait here on my knees. She dreams of me. My heart aches because I can't wait to finally meet you. My search will be through. Yeah.
So the first 2 or 3 times I listened to this album, it's just like while I was working. And so I was just enjoying. Then it's a great album for that. Honestly, you know, it has a great sound.
Right.
And then I sat down. The third time I listened to it, I just sat down and listened to the album and listened to like the lyrics and everything. And before we even wrote down the lyrics, I just was cringed. Like I wrote, the cringe is strong with this one. It's about waiting for God to give him the one thing he's yet to find. Which is the girl who dreams of him.
Yeah, me too. So same type of thing. You know, I listened to this album a lot as a teenager. I liked it. It never had the lyrics, and Clifton knows I'm not the one to usually pay attention to the lyrics nearly as much. Anyway, so and you're right. You can kind of do other stuff while you're listening to this. It's a good album. It has really nice sounds. Like in fact, it's a really good album to put on when you're not completely paying attention to that. But yeah, as I started listening to it for this podcast and started picking out the lyrics, I was like, yeah,
I know. And it's just, it's very much this kind of like, I guess saying goodbye, the one, you know, this guy's waiting on God to give him the one. He's hanging a lot on God giving him the one.
This is something that surprised me as we've done this podcast and gone back and listened to a lot of these, is how much kind of this attitude is throughout a lot of the music. It's kind of, I mean, one of the lines is because she's mine. And I know we say that a lot. Like, I get that every time you say that, it's not some patriarchal thing.
But however, no, this one's very specific.
In a lot of the church evangelical world at the time, that did seem to kind of be a common thing.
Yeah.
And so we've noticed that in some of the other artists and albums we've done now, is kind of this male headship, patriarchal, like, she's meant for me, this is going to be great type of thing.
Because the line isn't she's mine. The line is she's all mine.
Yeah. And again, I know people say that sometimes and don't mean everything with it.
But in this song, you can see it, though. You can see that.
Yeah. Yeah, but this was, to talk about I Kiss Dating Goodbye for a second. I mean, this was a popular idea at the time. I remember when that book came out, and tons of people in my youth group were reading it. And it was so we don't need to date. God has preordained who we have. We just need to wait for that one. And I honestly think it screwed up a lot of people. Honestly, it made them kind of incapable of dating.
Yeah, when I was dating a girl in high school, in my senior year, which is like really when because sometime in my junior year, the youth pastor's wife led a Bible study on I Kiss Dating Goodbye. So over the summer between junior and senior year, I started dating this girl, and like literally guys would come up to me at church and be like, "How did you do that?" Like, and thing is, she only had recently joined our church, and so she didn't go through that Bible study, But even if she had, I think she would have found it bullshit, Yeah, for lots of reasons. But yeah, it was just, it hurt a lot of people, I think. And there's been a huge rejection of it over the years, but not complete. I'll tell you, I went to my sister's wedding a few years ago, and the entire, this is very still, all of this is very much part of the American evangelical Christian culture, and the entire thing was like this insight into how much the kind of male headship persists, and the language around it was gross, and they would say things like men desire respect but women desire love.
Right.
Yeah, my wife turned to look at me and said, "I respect you and love you."
Well, and I feel like this is just a step away from that thing you see all the time online, like my smoking hot wife. I don't know if you've seen that posted by people on Facebook, photos of their wives.
No.
Usually it's Christian pastors posting that, and it's just
these people spent way too much time with Jerry Falwell Jr.
Right. It's just So I just looked while we were.
I find that very confusing though, because so the other part of my sister's wedding was that they had never kissed, they had never even front hugged. Which, by the way, guys, we need words for these because there's a word for side hug and there's a word for front hug. And so they'd never front hugged. And so I asked my wife, because she spent the whole weekend with the ladies, and I'm doing air quotes here.
Right.
And she got to see some things that I did not get to see. And so before we did this, I actually asked her about that. And within a minute, she was talking about power structures and manipulating and suppressing half the church. And it was just, it's bad. It's bad.
I just looked this up while we were talking. I Kiss Dating Goodbye sold 1.2 million copies.
That's all?
That's still a lot.
But I'm surprised it didn't sell more, honestly, with the impact it's had on the culture.
Right. And so I feel like if you're listening to this and have never heard of this, be blessed.
Yeah.
Feel blessed because,
to get into that a little bit more, from my understanding, that guy is not a Christian anymore, but even before he lost his faith, he renounced this book, though. Because he understood how much it hurt people. In fact, there's a website that's dedicated to nothing but posting stories of how this book destroyed people's lives.
Right. I'm reading this op-ed in the Washington Post about it, and it says many of the people that said I Kiss Dating Goodbye stunted their relationships, skewed their views of marriage and sexuality, or otherwise changed their lives for the worse. And they posted that. And you're right. He said it hasn't, but she makes the point in this op-ed. She says, "We insist that meritocracy works and combine it with a valorization of hard work. To maintain that story that success is accessible to all, we've developed a tendency to seek out and elevate simplistic formulas that we hope come with guarantees. Stay pure until marriage. Your marriage will flourish. Do this, do that." But she says, the dark side of all this is when the formulas fail, as they often do, it's you who must have done something wrong. Mm-hmm. And then it's up to you to fix it. Bad marriage, you must have screwed up as a teen, blah, blah, blah. And so it just, and I know we're being pretty hard on the song because it's not, we're taking it a little bit far with the I Kiss Dating Goodbye thing, but it just reminded me of
me too.
That part of that time period, and just, how gross it is and not helpful, and just how much kind of patriarchy you see in the Christian world at that time. I honestly been doing this podcast. It's been one of the most shocking things is how I see that in so many albums. And honestly, in a later song in this, I want to kind of talk about it too. It's not exactly the same thing, but kind of something similar pops up.
Yeah.
I will say with this song, getting back to it, learning that the Merbabies were part of a Reformed church. Mm-hmm. So we're talking Calvinism, predestination. This makes a little more sense to me with that. But yeah, still.
Yeah, you know, maybe you can make the argument that it's less misogynistic if it's Reformed Church because they believe that everything's predestined,
Right.
not just, you know, the girl that God is preparing for the guy, or, you know. But yeah, I don't know. The lyrics, the way he sings the lyrics, she dreams of me.
She dreams of me as I wait here on my knees.
It killed me because I knew I'd heard something like that before. And I literally, I was like, Built to Spill, Castanets, Bonnie Prince Billy. I listened to everything and I finally figured out.
She met a boy who worked as a waiter down at the
That Damien Gerardo's Yuma, Arizona.
Oh. Now, wait, when was that released?
Oh, 95? Yeah, that's off his first album.
I thought that was later, though. I thought his first album was like 99 or something.
99? Was it 99 when Ghost of David was released?
I'm Googling it right now. Okay, no, you're right. This came out in 97, so the same year.
Oh, same year, okay.
Said January 21st, 1997. Or
Okay.
maybe this one says January 28th. So, okay, interesting.
There we go.
I can hear that now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's jump on to the next song, because this was my favorite. It still is my favorite on the album.
Yeah, if I could.
It's hard to me to exactly pinpoint why, but I do feel like it's the strongest song on the album for me. It really kind of builds throughout the song. It's got the typical Merbabies stuff, kind of fuzzy guitar, but it's really got some nice melodies over that with the other guitar part. And it just, I guess I like songs that kind of build to a certain point, and it really feels like it does that towards the very end. Like the whole song just kind of seems like it's kind of building up.
right by the phone, just in case you decide to call. But if you refuse, it's my loss to lose a friend like you.
Something.
Yeah.
And yeah, lyrically, again, this is not the best. It's not terrible either. It's not as bad as the one before it. And honestly, it's another song I don't really know. It's not as clear what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And so that helps.
Yeah, so I actually peeked at your notes before this, and I found it funny that you said this is your favorite song on the album. And I was like, because my first note is, this is the most boring song we're talking about. But then I go on to say, until the middle of the song, when they get some death metal power chords and someone's screaming, and then the pace picks up, and now I like it. Why did they wait 4 minutes to do this?
I think that's, to me, okay, this song stands out like another song that may have come out the same year that I hope we talk about on another episode, but Roadside Monument on their split with, I think Puller had that song On Molasses Lake that I still love to this day. And they're not the same style, but it reminds me of this, and that they both kind of build to a high point towards the end of the song. And I think that's what I like. Because I'm like, okay, if I just hold on, I'm going to get there. And it's good. You're right. There's a kind of a yelly part in the background, which I don't know if it really helps the song, but
it's good.
You know, whatever.
And to be honest, none of that I just said was fair either, because the first part of the song is good. You know, it's just when I sat down to write about this song, I was like, oh, the first part of this is boring. But it's really not. It's good. But when I was listening, like those times I listened to it, you know, just working, it was great. But when I sat down to listen to it, I found the first part of the song boring. I don't know why.
Well, and it builds, and the kind of where the peak of it is he's saying, you know, if we could breathe beneath the sea, would you swim with me forever? And then he says, we could see some Merbabies.
They said the name of the band.
Only you and me forever. Yeah, which the bands don't do that often. So that's, I don't know.
Them and Built to Spill.
Yeah. Interesting, at least. And then they kind of just like get real noisy and kind of jammy towards the end, a lot like Built to Spill or something.
So my problem with the lyrics in this song are they're kind of cringe again, in the sense that this is clearly written about someone who has broken up with the protagonist or the author, whatever. And a lot of the song is like, yeah, but if we could be together forever, what would it be like? And it's like, well, dude, she said no. Like, you know,
Right.
There's a lot of consent issues in this song, in the song. Yeah. Now, the first line, and I saw this, and you don't like this line, but I thought the first line of the second verse, I thought this verse was going to be sweet because it starts off with, if I could only be a tree, you know, to hang out all summer long or around all summer. It's like, oh, I thought this was going to be sweet, but then it comes back with, you know, protecting her, but she's already broken up with you. Why are you? Anyways, I don't know.
I just think if I could only be a tree is a strange lyric.
That's fine. Like Roadside Monument didn't say weirder things than that.
You're right. I think just in the way it comes across in this is just funny to me.
Yeah.
This song also kind of seems to have like an obligatory Jesus mention in it that doesn't really seem to help it much.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things I got to thinking about with this song is kind of, you know, I understand the thought process of this song, you know, with you've been broken up with, and you're kind of going, I think this song's kind of like the bargaining stage of mourning, you know, in the breakup. Because like I said, it's a lot of this like, yeah, but if this, you know.
Right.
And I kind of got to thinking like, and I don't think we're going to answer this, but it just was a thought that popped in my mind was, you know, I wonder where the line is regarding, you know, truthfulness and artistic expression and not being cringy after a breakup, you know?
Yeah.
Because I understand the bargaining, and I understand it's better to do it in your head than it is to do it with her, you know? Obviously. And in a song is better because it's at least expression and you're getting it out without, you know, but I don't know. It's a very interesting thought, I think, that I don't know where the right place for that line is.
Yeah, he has not moved into the like angry breakup phase yet.
No.
I don't really think on any of these.
No.
He's still kind of in the sad, not sure if he wants to deal with it phase yet. Yeah, bargaining and coming to terms with it.
Yeah.
But again, for some reason, this has just always been my favorite song on this.
Yeah.
I think it still is. I just love the sound. I love the way it builds.
It's
a good, if I had to play, if you were like, play me one Merbabies song, this would be the one I would pick.
That makes sense.
You know?
Because, you know, so let's get to the next song, Whirlpool, which is the song on the 7-ball sampler. It's the one song on YouTube other than the first song on the album.
Mm-hmm.
This is the song they put out into the wild.
And I can see that. This is probably my second favorite song.
Yeah.
It's a little shorter too. It's not as like, you know, if I could, it's like over 5 minutes long.
Right,
I think.
yes.
So this one is nice. This one is pretty catchy. This is the one I would find kind of playing in my head the most after it.
Spinning round and round, just like I said it would. Spinning round and round, just like you said it would. Spinning round and round, just like you said it would.
This is like the first song, not super clear what they're talking about, and I think that works well for them. So, and it honestly, to me, this is probably the happiest Merbabies song. I also put in my notes, I kind of think they could have just ended the album after this song.
Yeah.
Like the way that the song kind of goes out when just a spinning round and round, repeating and repeating, like then maybe they could have changed the song order, but this would have been a nice ending to the album just with that.
Yeah.
But so you had heard this song before,
No.
right? Oh, okay.
I
You said it
mean,
was on the
maybe,
7-ball
but like I don't
sampler,
remember it, you know?
So what are your thoughts on it?
One of my few notes on it is just, can we call this genre suburban rock? I don't know why I wrote that, but I did.
I do think this is a nice song. It's catchy. I can see why they stuck it on samplers. Then if they had a single, this one would make sense.
I still think there's
for them.
better songs towards the beginning of this album, but
So you would probably go with Here I Go Again or something.
yeah, something like that, yeah.
I think the only other one I wanted to talk about, we skipped a couple, is Walk With Me, which is after that on the album. And it's musically, this is not my favorite song. I kind of just wanted to touch on the lyrics basically he says, come on, girl, just walk with me. You know, the world doesn't offer everything. And I don't know if walk in this song is literal or figurative. I'm going to guess figurative, thinking about Christianity and things, but not 100% clear. But the reason I wanted to bring this up is I feel like, again, this kind of comes back to a theme we've seen in other albums of like, the girl is the one with the problems and the guy is the good Christian trying to pull her along the narrow path.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but it's honestly a little bit weird how much we've seen that in already just the albums we've done.
Well, they're mostly by guys, so we're not going to see the other way around, probably.
You're right, but why are we not seeing, like, why are they not talking about their guy friends? Like, it always seems to be about girls who've gone astray rather than, like, dudes who've gone astray. It just is a little bit interesting.
That's a very good point, yeah.
So I noticed that in this song, and I thought, similar theme, seeing this pop up again. It sounds like, he says, I'm begging you to change. I'm telling you, girl, things will be okay. It's like, she's gone astray. He's got to pull her back. Again, how much of like kind of gender roles, patriarchy stuff is kind of built in that we didn't realize, you know?
Yeah. No, it's definitely there. You know, after talking to Sean from Rainy Days, where he actually did have two specific examples of what those songs were about, it gives me pause to question it a little bit. But at the same time, you know, yes, it is still there. Like, this song is about a girl, it's not about a guy. You know, and it kind of makes me wonder if, you know, because we will hear other songs as we get into other music, not on this album, but on other albums, that kind of just talk to people in general about, hey, why are you messing up and stuff like that. And it kind of makes me wonder, it's like when guys talk about other guys, they seem to, maybe they're talking general. But when they talk about girls, it's like they have kind of this, and maybe it's a little cringe, maybe it's a little bit creepy, you know, but it's more personal. And I think it also brings out like a softer side of it, you know, where definitely it does bring that kind of knight in shining armor thing out. And
yeah, that's a good way to put it. Knight in shining armor.
But, and I wonder if the person writing the song kind of feels a little more, I want to say this gently because I still think it's a bit cringe, but maybe they feel more dedication to the girl, you know? I don't know. I'm having a hard time finding the right word here, but it's, you know, like with the guys, it's like, hey, what the fuck? Be better, you know?
Yeah.
But with the girl, it's like, what can I do to help you? But in a kind of a cringy way, you know?
And I think knight in shining armor is a really good way to put it in this kind of chivalrous idea. It also made me think, though, like going back to like original sin in the Bible, who's the first one to sin? Oh, it's Eve. Sorry, like always leading the men astray. I don't know. I know I'm being like too much on this song, but we see that idea come up a lot as we've been exploring these albums, and it seems pretty baked in to evangelical Christianity, and I did not realize it honestly until going back and looking at some of this stuff. So it's kind of weird to re-examine it.
Yeah, so. But I will say, like look at the lyrics here though. It does seem kind of soft though. It's not mean. It says, "I'm begging you to change. I'm telling you, girl, things will be okay." You're
right. It could be much worse. Yeah. It's just like I kind of have it like a radar for this now.
Yeah, no.
After seeing it in these other ones. So, and again, he's obviously dealing with lots of breakup on this album and lots of things. So this fits with that.
Yeah.
The last song, Sorry Again, I didn't really put in the notes to talk about. Well, one thing I did notice is he counts all the way from 1 to 24.
Yes.
In the album, and then apologizes. He says, sorry for everything I've done. Sorry for all the heartache that I brought along. And he says, for so long, and just the album ends.
Yeah.
Which I guess is fitting for some of the other themes on this album. Again, I liked the way Whirlpool ended kind of happier, but, you know, it works.
Yeah. I thought the counting was interesting. Except my first thought was Cap and Jazz, you know, it's like, this is nowhere interesting. Yeah. Cap and Jazz, you yell at A, B, C, you know, like, yeah.
Well, I kept really listening intently because I was like, is that it?
Yeah.
Is it just counting?
Yes.
And then, that's all.
Yep. Although the number that stands out the most to me was 21 for some reason. I don't know why. Every time I hear it, I was keying on 21 for some reason.
Yeah, I thought it might have some kind of code. I don't know. I just wondered what number he was going to stop on, and then it got to 24, and I was like, oh, okay.
That's just divisible by 4, which is the number of beats in each measure, you know? So.
Exactly.
Overall, what did you think of the album?
You know what? I really liked it. I know I've been hard on it
Yeah.
But it's one of those that, like you said earlier, if you put it on when you're doing work or something, it's a great album.
Mhm.
It's really nice. I've really enjoyed it. And honestly, I wish, again, I'm going to say this in a lot of episodes, please, I wish people would put this on Spotify or somewhere that it's just easier for people to listen to now, because
Yeah.
this is a really nice album and it would be nice for more people to hear this.
Yeah. No, we did put it on YouTube, so you can find it once again.
Yeah. It's under, Your Music Saved Us on
Mhm.
YouTube, along with Loudflower, which we also could not find anywhere.
Yes.
So yeah, check it out on there because it's really nice.
Yeah. Thinking about this, I didn't listen to this in high school, and thinking back, I probably wouldn't have liked it in high school.
Really?
Yeah, even like Joe Christmas, it took me. I really didn't get into Joe Christmas until like my freshman or sophomore year of college, honestly. So that '90s indie rock thing, it took getting into other things, Jawbreaker, Jets to Brazil, Promise Ring, some of those guys to really, I think, kind of get that more of an understanding of what was going on there in my head, so that I enjoyed it. If I had enjoyed it in high school, I think I would have been all the richer for it. But overall, I think this is it's a good album. That's not great, but it's an enjoyable, listenable album.
Yeah. I think that's a good way to put it. And to me, that speaks well of it if you might not have liked it in high school, but you like it now.
Mhm.
Because a lot of albums we listen to are the exact opposite.
Yes, very true. Very true. I wish I had liked it in high school. Yeah. One thing I noticed in some write-ups about this is that people keep referring to this as, I guess they said this has like shoegazy elements. It is not.
Yeah.
It has some Starflyer elements.
Fuzzy guitar,
Yeah.
I guess, but not it's
Yeah.
not shoegaze.
It has some Starflyer elements, but Starflyer isn't pure shoegaze either, so
Right.
I think people are maybe confusing that. So there's no shoegaze in this album. It just has fuzzy guitars, which is very 90s indie rock. If you like if you like 90s fuzzy guitar indie rock, you're going to like this.
And I will say, I am not the biggest Dinosaur Jr. fan, but in preparation for this episode, I went back and listened to a couple of their albums that came out a couple years before this and was like, oh, like, okay, yeah, there's a pretty strong influence there.
Definitely so, yeah. So it's pretty light on Christianity overall, especially on the surface level. Like, I would say we found less Christianity as much as I think we found kind of that 90s Christian culture.
Right. Which, again, I think is coming true for a lot of these albums. But yeah, and you're right, on the surface, and that was me back in the day, you don't notice it as much. But when you dig in, there's more of it there.
So what did you think about the cover art?
It's kind of this, like, I don't know, it looks like late 70s or 80s photo of a girl on a big wheel kind of thing in a front yard somewhere. It actually works pretty well.
I think it's great. It's a great indie rock cover.
Yeah, it fits that. I kind of like the font that the Merbabies is written in on there too. I think it fits it. And again, you see this album and it's probably indie rock.
Definitely.
Like, I think that's a pretty safe bet. It's not bad. On the disc itself, it's got some kind of, it's not as great on the disc itself. It's got some kind of outline of a guy with a lasso, kind of, so you can kind of see more of the Western influence.
Yeah, so the cover and the back are just like, the cover is the girl with the big wheel, although the big wheel has a very small wheel for what you're expecting today in big wheels.
True.
80s big wheels were much smaller wheels. And the back of it's kind of like a girl also in pigtails, like skating on, four-wheel skating on a driveway with, in front of a garage. Which I think is, very kind of like small town suburban, I think, in both of these, which I think really is a good encapsulation of the feeling of the album also.
Yeah.
But yeah, when you get inside, there's that lasso thing on the CD, and then there's pictures of like an old pickup truck parked in front of an old house, with that's in disrepair. And we get kind of real country, not country like music, but culturally,
That's a good way to put it. And Chris, the main songwriter, took those photos, and he's actually a photographer and still does that stuff today. So that kind of makes a little more sense. There's also some artwork of a cowboy. And that's
and some tumbleweeds.
About it.
Yeah.
And really all that there is inside is those photos. It's kind of a trifold thing, which is photos. And there's on one of the fold pages, there's the credits. And that's it.
And very minimal credits at that.
Yeah, there's not a lot be known about this band. And I guess to be fair, it's Chris Bowden guitar. It's Brian Jacob Uri. I don't know how to say his last name. It says Campbell in parentheses, and then Woodrow Lynn Barron III for drums. So just to give them all 3 credit, say we've mentioned it, but that is it.
Yeah. They think, as Jay mentioned, they think, Jesus People USA, Rosewood, Christian Reformed Church, Brighter Days, which is a Bible study they went to, and VBM.
Velvet Blue Music, we're assuming.
Yeah.
Which actually I did read an interview with him, and he said they were thinking about being signed to them as well, but he knew Matt better, and Matt came along first, so they did Jackson Rubio. They
probably would have gone further on Velvet Blue. There may have been some more advertising dollars behind them.
Yeah, and it definitely is a sound that would have fit with Velvet Blue as well. I thought recording quality of this, I really thought it wasn't bad. I thought it fit for the sound.
Yeah, it sounds good for what it is. It's right for what it is.
Yeah, like you kind of don't think about it,
no.
Which is probably the right way to have the recording quality on an album.
Yeah. One thing we don't really talk about, what's always in our notes to talk about, is the musicianship. And I think the songwriting, honestly, is really good, and the guitar playing on this is really good. There's nothing to complain about here, honestly. Yes, it's Dinosaur Jr. influenced heavily, but it does it well. It's not a cheap ripoff, and it even brings in some of its own things. And I think there's something to listen to here.
Yeah, I'm with you. And considering he was just playing drums just a year or 2 before this.
And not playing guitar.
Even touring with that band. Yeah, that's what I mean. I mean, at least devoting quite a bit of time to a different instrument. This is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Especially because in the credits, there's no one else credited for guitar. So he's playing both those parts.
Yeah. I mean, there's a slide guitar in Lemonade, but that's the only other credit for guitar.
Yeah. Musicianship's pretty good, honestly.
One of the things I wrote about the packaging is, it's nothing special, but it's awful pleasant. I think that kind of sums up the album, too.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Well, Jay, where are they now?
Chris Bowden, who, by the way, sometimes goes by his middle name, which is Charles, or maybe Charles is his first name. Either you might find him by C. Charles Bowden or Chris Bowden. He formed, after this band, he formed another one called Other Desert Cities, which I think that name really fits with kind of that Western influence. They released their first album in 2001 on Velvet Blue Music. They had another one that came out in 2006. It was called On the Verge of Collapsing. And then a long time, and they finally had another one out in 2015 called Songs of Lament, which was self-released. Sometime during that time, I think it's around 2004, he moved up to Seattle. And then in 2016, and this is all on Bandcamp, he has started releasing music as Chris's Farm.
All of that's released in 2016, actually.
Yeah, and there's 8 volumes of it. Now, they're usually short 3 or 4 songs, but it's not bad. I listened to some of it, and it's very still kind of Western country influenced. And he's also a photographer, and I think that maybe is his main business. And you can find more at cbowden.com.
He has good photography there.
And then finally, the other thing that's kind of fun is he's formed a new band called Left Neglect.
Yeah.
And I think they recorded a lot of their stuff in 2019 and put it out in early 2020. But it's with some guys from Roadside Monument, former Pedro the Lion. It's on Bandcamp. It's really nice. Yeah. I really like it.
Good toilet rock. I don't know what that means, but someone in the band commented that on somewhere online, and I thought it was good.
Yeah, it's. I would definitely recommend checking out Left Neglect on Bandcamp. They have a really nice sound, and it's good stuff.
All right.
So, yeah.
So do you have an award for this album?
Oh, man. The Dinosaur Jr. Influence Award. As Clifton has pointed out, we're not probably going to come across anyone else that much influenced by that band. But, in my opinion, I like Dinosaur Jr., and it's okay to have other bands that sound like that. And because they're doing such interesting things on the guitar, it's not super derivative.
No.
It's nice. And this is a really pleasant album.
We got it.
All right, Jay, what are we listening to for next episode?
We are going to listen to Quayle by Quayle.
All right.
Which I believe came out in 1997.
Same year as this, another self-titled album. And much like you, this is one of those albums for me that none of my friends listened to. I was the only person I knew who liked Quayle. All right, I'm looking forward to it. And this was also one of those that I wrote down their lyrics in the margins when I was taking notes in school. So a little bit obsessed.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Your Music Saved Us.
If you enjoyed your time with us, please leave us a review or share this episode on the social media of your choice, where you can probably find us at Your Music Saved Us. Or you can email us at yourmusicsavedus@gmail.com.
The music in this episode is the work of the Merbabies and is used with apologies, not permission.
You can find more music from Chris Bowden as Chris's Farm on Bandcamp, or find his photography on cbowden.com. Or as Jay has also said, there's lots of other bands that he's in. Thank you.
Bye.
What is Reformed theology? I don't know. Maybe we can talk about that there in the episode.
That is that's like Calvinism.
That's it.
Yeah. So
Boring.
that explains supposedly on another album they have a song called Sovereignty on that EP that's all about somebody on an article I found put the lyrics to it. They say, "It's not me who understands. Predestination always has the upper hand. It's just the way it was planned from all eternity." So it explains maybe a little bit of their lyrics.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Which is also maybe we could talk about it, but a side note, I just find it weird, a weird theology for some of these bands. I remember Plank Eye was into that too.
Yeah.
What? I don't know.
I mean, it's still the thing in evangelicalism, so.
It's just, yeah, I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I was a big into Calvinism at the time too. So.
I remember when you talked about, this might have been freshman year of college, right? Talking about Plank Eye and some other stuff.
Yep.
And he went full blown in that. He's some kind of reformed pastor or something.
Oh, really?
But yeah, but
I didn't know that.
But I think, I don't know. The more I think about that version of Christianity, it even seems more. Not that Christianity doesn't seem bizarre, but anyway, we could talk about this on the podcast. So
yes.
Sorry.
Okay.